Hello, my well, अरे अभी काटो तो काटो, हम कहो कि ये करो ना. Good morning to my dear students. In my today's lecture, I am going to take up the wasteland further, and in this text, just I want to tell you that how there is basically the images that has been used. The images are highly, you know that these images are highly you can say that they are highly very difficult and sordid image that you find here. They are difficult and sordid images, right? A difficult and sordid image, and this imagery is very important in this play that you find in the wasteland, right? Where you find a lot of imagery that how the text, reading text is very important. So there is the reference of you know that Madam Sosorastri, that how this madam he in fact how this madam he tells a lot of things that there are reversal of older values, that is very important. So Madam Sosostri's famous Clarentine had a bad cold, nevertheless is known to be the wisest woman in Europe, right? This text, if you read the Wasteland, you find that this text is the best example of the best example of what we call man-woman relationship. Man-woman relationship, and you know this relationship is fragmentary. What T.S. Eliot wants to say is that how this relationship is fragmentary. What happened to this relationship? The problem is that that the relationship is in a fragmentary status, right? That you find that that the relationship itself is a fragmentary. this fragmentary relationship. That is problematized, right? Again, there is another issue that the cities are unreal. Cities are unreal. Again, you find that this poem is a typical London poem. As you know, the T.S. Eliot was highly city-oriented poet. The first metropolitan poet, if you see, that is T.S. Eliot. The first metropolitan poet. You know that the metro city was set up by this writer. He is talking about the sensibility of metro city, right? So he says that is known to be the wisest woman in Europe with a wicked pack of cards. Is your card the drowned Phoenician sailor? Those are first that were his eyes. Look, here is Belladonna, the lady of the rocks, the lady of situations. Here is the man with three steps, and here the wheel, and here is the one-eyed merchant. Right? This one-eyed merchant. Right? This one-eyed merchant is another symbol. Which is blank is something he carries on his back, which I am forbidden to see. I do not find. The hanged man feared death by water. And this imagery is very important. That you see that when you read T.S. Eliot, you find the images of water. The images of water in his early poem. The images of water in his early poem. However, there is images of water in his early poem, and if you read his later poems, like the four quartets, you find the images of the garden. There are the images of the garden. This garden image is also very important, right? The images of garden. Death by water. I see crowds of people walking around in a ring. Thank you if you see Mr. Equitone, right? So that is what I want to say, that if I move further, as I move forward in text, you find the hangman, right? The hangman, and then you have the hangman, and then you have uh, thank you if you see dear Mrs. Equitone. Tell her I bring the horoscope myself. One must be so careful these days. This horoscope imagery, right? And then he says that tell her uh, I bring the horoscope myself. One must be so careful these days. And then you find unreal city. As you know that if you read T.S. Eliot, you find that he is the first poet of metropolitan sensibility, the first metropolitan sensibility. And then he says, unreal city. Under the brown fog of winter dawn, a crowd flowed over London Bridge so many. I had not thought death had undone so many. Sighs, short and infrequent, were exhaled, and each man fixed his eyes before his feet, flowed up the hill and down King William Street, to where St. Mary would not keep the hours, with a dead sound on the final stroke of 9. So this is called unreal city. In T.S. Eliot, so many cities are unreal city. So what T.S. Eliot wants to say is that how London city became unreal. Not only the problem of the wasteland is not only limited within the parameters of urban life, rural life, rather it is also associated with city life. So he says that all these cities, they became the place of corruption. That is called that unreal city. Under the brown fog of winter dawn, a crowd flowed over London Bridge so many. I had not thought death had undone so many. Sighs short and infrequent were exhaled, and each man fixed his eyes before his feet, flowed up the hill and down King William Street, to where St. Mary Woolnoth kept the hours, with a dead sound on the final stroke of 9. Right? So, what I want to tell is here that just if you read T.S. Eliot's poem The Wasteland, just only you should mention the images. That's why T.S. Eliot is imagist poet. I am referring it again and again that how T.S. Eliot is imagist poet. He is the imagist poet. And then you find that and each man fixed his eyes before his feet, flowed up the hill and down King William Street, where St. Mary Woolnoth kept the hours, with a dead sound on the final stroke of 9. There I saw one I knew and stopped him crying, Son, you who were with me in the ship at Melee, that copse you planted last year in young garden, has it begun to sprout? Will it bloom this year? That in other, this is the fertility. The fertility issue, that everything is barren. Everybody is barren. The land is dry. The land is dry. And that's why this is called the wasteland. That's why this is called the wasteland. Or had the sudden frost disturb its bed? Or keep the dog far hence, that friend no man. Or with his nails he will dig it up again. You hypocrite lecture, non-semblable, mon frere. So, if any question is asked pertaining to this text, just only इसको आप ध्यान दीजिएगा that there is story, there is intertextuality. This intertextuality is very important in this text. If you see that intertextuality, right? A lot of intertextual imagery. Intertextuality, and this intertextuality is a term later it was propounded by Julia Kristeva in his most of the famous books. Julia Kristeva, there he also you find intertextuality. So what you find is that or keep the dog far hence, that's friend to man, or with his nails. So this is the first wasteland. So first chapter, the first section start with Chaucer. Then you have unreal city, barren land, one-eyed, London merchant. So many cases, so many things are here, and this is called the wasteland. This is called the wasteland, right? And then next section is the game of chess. So first section is the burial of the dead. The burial of the dead. You see that if you read this text, आप पाएंगे that in this poem, what we call the wasteland, you find the imagery of the sordid, right? और जब आपका क्वेश्चन पूछेगा तो बेसिकली जो बीए और एमएम क्वेश्चन है उसी तरह से क्वेश्चन पूछा जाएगा. There will be no separate question on this text, right? The question will be asked pertaining to the wasteland, how the land is completely different, how the land was once good, it has been barren and it has been the barren land, the land is completely waste, and that is the wasteland. So intertextuality and one-eyed man. So man-women relationship, that how this relationship is fragmented, and the sanctity between men and women. You know, this also interesting question. Sanctity between men and women, or what we call the compatibility. The compatibility between men and women. This is the issue that is also fragmented. So everything is in a state of fragmentary, and that is why this text is called the intertextual text. There is intertextuality, and that's why the land is waste, right? This is called the wasteland. If you read this poem, that how there is intertextuality, and so many themes are here. The themes that is not typical London poem. So everything is in a state of fragmentary. So that is the wasteland. If you read this text, uh, further study, you find that how that the sordid boon, intertextuality, the fragmentary relationship between men and women, how the cities, as the poem will progress, you find that all the cities are unreal city, be it Vienna, be it London, be it Egypt. Most of the cities, they are unreal cities. So the structure, the stature of the city is also fragmentary. Everything is in a state of fragmentation. So that is the burial of the dead. The title itself is very symbolical, that how the dead who are died in the World War, they are being buried, and their proper right is one of the issues, one of the case of this wasteland. Today I stop here. In my next video, I will be taking a game of chess. Thank you.